Does this qualify as an Italian Titus Andronicus? 1999's Titus, starring Anthony Hopkins, Jessica Lange, and Alan Cumming, is the only theatrically released adaptation of Titus Andronicus. For good reason.
What a thing it is to be an ass.
This is also the first film in this series to use Shakespeare's actual text, so... yay? Now, Titus Andronicus is notable for being a very not good play. Like, to the point where some scholars think that Shakespeare didn't even write it. But I kind of wish he had, because that might mean that Shakespeare invented the yo mama joke.
Thou hast undone our mother!
Villain, I have done thy mother.
I won't talk about all the bad stuff that happens in this play because it's kind of darkly hilarious. Trigger warning, rape, mutilation, and pie. Titus Andronicus is a Roman general who just defeated German barbarians and brought home 5 POWs, the Queen of the Goths, Tamara, her 3 sons, and her lover, Aaron the Moor, a man with ritual scars and spanks. Titus lost several sons in battle, and so he sacrifices the eldest of Tamara's sons in revenge. This was a smart thing to do. Later, when the new emperor is chosen, a lot of dumb happens for reasons that no one has been able to comprehend for 400 years, but I have to explain it anyway, so here goes. Titus gets offered the throne, but he declines and supports a man named Saturninus, whose brother Bassianus is engaged to Titus's daughter, Lavinia. Immediately after becoming emperor, Saturninus says, "Hey, I want Titus's daughter." And Bassianus is like, no. To which Saturninus replies, "Oh yeah, well I'm gonna wed the Goth woman you captured, ha 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 ha!" Here's that scene in modern times. Because Republicans oppose my policies, I, Barack Obama, will now marry the leader of ISIS. So, the now Empress Tamara and her secret lover, Aaron the Moor with no redeeming qualities, get her 2 living sons, Demetrius and Chiron, to kill Bassianus and frame Titus's 2 living sons for the murder. On top of that, they also tell them to rape Lavinia and then cut off her hands and cut out her tongue so she can't identify the attackers. Lavinia then spends the rest of the play as a mute, bloodied, living motivation for Titus to do anything else. Shakespeare also invented the women in refrigerators trope. Aaron then goes to Titus and says that the emperor would pardon his sons if he cuts off his hand and sends it to him. And so he does, and oh my god, a Ziploc baggie, holy shit. Then they wait for a response, and soon enough, the hand gets sent back, along with his 2 sons' heads. Some scholars honestly think this was a parody. So Titus has his brother grab the heads, and Lavinia takes her father's hand in her... What the fuck? What is this play? Do you bite my thumb, sir? Aaron, meanwhile, has a bastard kid with Tamara, leading to the aforementioned yo mama joke, and because they're not done dicking with the Andronici, Tamara and her sons dress up in stupid costumes and basically stand outside of Titus's house going boo. But before they can TP his house, Titus goes out and says, "Hey, come on inside, 2 guys who I have no ill will against. Old lady, you can go home because nothing bad will happen." They buy this for some reason, and psych, dead. Here's the most famous part of the play. Titus Andronicus takes the bodies of the 2 boys and bakes them into pies. Pies which are then served to their mother.
Why, there they are! Both baked in that pie whereon their mother daintily hath laid!
Okay, 2 things. 1, yes, I get the serendipity of Anthony Hopkins once again playing a character who cooks other people. And 2, yes, this inspired that South Park episode you are definitely thinking about right now.
Oh my god! I made you eat your parents.
And then it's a total bloodbath. Lavinia's killed by Titus in what I guess is an honor killing. Blech. Then he kills Tamara and then gets killed by Saturninus, who in turn is killed by Titus's other son, Lucius, who I forgot to mention, and Aaron gets buried in the ground so he can starve to death. The aristocrats! So this play, it's impossible to do straight. It's just too wild, too debauched, too Roman. And as it starts, it's clearly set in a very, very ancient Rome, with crusted armor and soldiers moving like living ruins, and chariots and motorcycles and Da Vinci-style tanks, and yeah, it's all Roman. No, it makes perfect sense, Marty. You're just not thinking fourth-dimensionally. Rome's nickname is the Eternal City, and Titus is set at all points in that eternity. It thrives on anachronism, as if it's trying to match the play's audacity in story by matching it with audacity in design. So it just feels like everything in the world is thrown in there, but it doesn't completely fly apart at the seams solely because everything that's borrowed comes from Rome itself. There's ancient Rome, with the Coliseum, the armor, the togas, the great wolf's head, alluding to the wolf that suckled Romulus and Remus. But there's also 20th century Rome. The location used for the film's seat of government is Rome's Palazzo della Civiltà Italiana, built during the reign of Mussolini, and one of Europe's most famous examples of fascist architecture. Add to that the black-shirted guards around the emperor, along with his popemobile, the combo toga suits, all set in front of a building designed by fascists to evoke classical Rome, and the film becomes not just an imagining of Rome, but an imagining of other people's imaginings of Rome. SPQR news, ha 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 ha. But it's also the swinging Rome of Federico Fellini, with more than a few parties that wouldn't feel out of place in 8½, or La Dolce Vita. It's worth noting that Fellini also did a film about ancient Rome, adapted from the Roman novel Satyricon by Petronius, and it shares a lot of the same wild leaps of logic, comic sense of eroticism, and fantastical production design as Titus. The bloodiness and open sexuality wouldn't feel out of place in any Italian exploitation film by someone like Tinto Brass. In fact, Titus was shot at the famous Cinecittà Studios in Rome, which patronized countless legends of Italian cinema, and that debt to Italian culture appears in every frame of Titus. And how could I fail to mention the film's extended tribute to the noted Italian culinary artist, Chef Ettore Boiardi. Shakespeare, of course, loved Italy. He set 12 out of his 37 plays entirely or partially in Italy, immortalizing cities from Verona to Venice to Padua to Rome. And Italy returned that love, from the opera adaptations by Giuseppe Verdi to the beloved film adaptations by Franco Zeffirelli. Italy and Shakespeare were made for each other. So naturally, Titus was directed by Julie Taymor, an American. Julie Taymor is an interesting figure. She spent her whole career teetering on the edge of mainstream acceptability without falling into it. Far more comfortable on the stage than behind the camera, she's a bourgeois sort of avant-garde. But instead of bowing to popular tastes, she makes popular tastes bow to her. Look at the things she's most famous for: wildly succeeding at bringing one Disney property to Broadway, and epically failing to do the same to another. But in both productions, she combined a disinterest in pop culture with an interest in folklore, directing with a certain wanton playfulness. Nab a little Indonesian puppet theater, a little Greek myth, whatever stuck to the wall, whatever pushed the medium of theater to its limit. Titus, likewise, was a stage production first and a film production later. Taymor herself admitted that the film medium was a hell of an adjustment from theater, and that hesitation to change shows. In fact, a lot of the more baffling scenes make more sense as theater pieces. These fiery dream sequences started out as video projections on a stage, visualizing the character's inner thoughts. Like this scene after Titus's sons are sentenced to death, where he imagines his son as a... What? That awkward leap between film and theater isn't unique to Titus, of course. These are all theater adaptations, after all. West Side Story has scenes shot outdoors on 110th Street, but its dancers are doing moves that are more appropriate for indoors on 42nd Street. And Throne of Blood was caught between the reality of the foggy, tactile landscapes of Mount Fuji and the expressionism of the broad gesticulations of no acting. Both carry artifacts left from the medium transfer. A big difference between theater and film is that theater is allowed to be suggestive and abstract, the bare stage that doesn't have to be filled. You can suggest things on stage, change the lighting to suggest a forest, or a beach, paint a backdrop to look like a Coliseum. Or in Shakespeare's time, all you really needed was an actor and an audience. But film is specific. Setting matters. Location matters. But theater thrives on borrowing and suggesting. One might even say, appropriating. Cultural appropriation is a whole discussion unto its own, but I don't think it applies here. If anything, with Julie Taymor working so closely with Italian artists, this is closer to cultural exchange. Sure, none of the styles she's borrowing show any kind of accurate portrayal of Italian culture, any more than saying this is authentically Chinese, or this is authentically Native American. You get the idea. But Titus seems built on self-conscious cultural exchange, rather than insensitive appropriation. Julie Taymor knows that the signifiers she's taking are wildly out of joint, and deliberately so, with only the thread of character and theme of sorts to hold it all together. And when these signs are so disjointed, there's really no other way to read them other than as a series of symbolic acts. And what do they symbolize? Well, this opening seems pretty on the nose. A boy playing with action figures, spraying them with ketchup blood as bombs go off in the distance, and then, boom. A soldier comes in and whisks the boy away to a Coliseum, a place where death is a spectacle. The boy is a character in Shakespeare's play, but a very minor one. Young Lucius, Titus's grandson and the son of the man who becomes emperor by the play's end. He doesn't do much in the original play, save for one scene involving a fly.
Dost thou strike at Lucius with thy knife?
At that I have killed, my lord, a fly.
Outdone thee, murderer! Kill'st my heart! A deed of death done on the innocent becomes not Titus' grandson. Get thee gone!
It's a weird scene. Titus, rather uncharacteristically, chews him out for taking an innocent life.
How if that fly had a father and mother? How would they hang their slender gilded wings and buzz lamenting doings in the air?
But then Lucius explains why he killed it.
Pardon me, sir. It was a black, ill-favoured fly, like to the Emperor Small. Therefore I killed him.
He says that he killed the fly because it was black and it reminded him of Aaron. First off, yes, racist as hell, but more so, this is a kid. This is the most innocent character in the play doing this. And here he is taking the violence around him and letting it out on a fly. That's how you say this play. Not by looking at it as a bloody exploitation piece, but by looking at it as a showcase of how violence affects humanity. We could either be horrified by the violence, or so numb to the notion that we can't help but laugh.
Why dost thou laugh?
Why I have not another tear to shed.
Maybe it says more about us than about Shakespeare that we have the ability to write off all this violence as a joke.
She says she drinks no other drink but tears.
Oh, the tears of unfathomable sadness. Yummy.
Back to that Coliseum. Young Lucius is brought into this scene of rusted metal soldiers. Why are they metal?
Marcus, we are but shrubs. No cedars we. No big-boned men framed of the Cyclops' size. But metal, Marcus, steel to the very back.
Okay, that makes sense. The first scenes of the play are all ritual. Titus mourns his dead sons, he ritually sacrifices the eldest son of Tamara, and that cycle of blood given for blood continues throughout the play, until the final dinner scene with death upon death upon death upon death. And young Lucius sees it all. Once the cycle of vengeance is finally complete, it zooms out, back to the Coliseum, where now we have an audience. The entire film took place in that Coliseum, and by showing the audience, we become aware of how culpable we are as audience members. And just as young Lucius was the first to enter the Coliseum, he's also the first to leave, carrying the bastard child of Tamara and Aaron with him. Innocent Lucius is carrying the one life created in a story where so many lives were destroyed. Taymor deserves all the credit in the world for finding that bit of poignancy in what could otherwise be gory schlock, by taking the pieces of the play and, well, playing with them. by dancing around specificity, by having the play's signs so disjointed. And because it's so deliberately unreal, it forces you to put the pieces together and make a new meaning. That play within culture always happens in Shakespeare, especially in his, period pieces. Every production, no matter how strange, has to deal with the time the play is set, the time the play was written, and the time during which the production is being staged. And it's in that juggling act between now and then and here and there that new ideas can be formed. Sometimes that juggling goes the abstract route, like here, and other times it's set deliberately in no place, and therefore in every place. Next episode, we're going to talk about a Shakespeare adaptation set nowhere in particular.